Well, hello once again and welcome to In Your Corner. John Scholes, Sivan, Tumarkin, James Fireman. We talk about injury law and disability law. Lots of good stuff coming up on the show today, including 3 feelings most LTD claimants experience when dealing with their insurance company. It ain't warm and fuzzy, I'll tell you that much. That's coming up here in just a bit. James, what do you got for us off the hop, pal?
So we like to start the show by discussing things that can help educate our viewers. So when they're dealing with their insurance companies, they'll be in a better position to understand what's going on, and if they need to dispute any denial or cutoff, that they'll be in the best position possible. So let's start with this. Sun Tzu said, know your enemy. So who are we talking about here? We're talking about the insurance companies. And a lot of times we'll have clients come to us and not understand why an insurance company isn't listening to them. Why don't they listen to what their doctors are saying? Why is it that they've decided to cut off their benefits even though they clearly cannot go to work? And, you know, they watch TV and they think that their insurance company is a good neighbor, or they're in good hands, or their insurance company is an actor that plays a president on a TV show, or a local hockey star, or a football player, or a duck, or a gecko. No, that is not who the insurance company is, my friend. The insurance company is a multi-billion-dollar company that is in business for one thing: to make profits for their shareholders. And how do they do that? They do that by taking in as many premiums as they can and paying out as little benefits as they can. That is what is going to be driving their decision-making at every step of the way. How do we take in more and give out less? So if you're trying to understand why it is your insurance company isn't listening to you, isn't understanding the logical reasons that you've laid out or that your doctor has laid out, start with that. Understand who your opponent is and what their interests are.
It's a business.
Exactly.
It's a business at the end of the day. Sivan, what do you got going on, pal, for today?
Well, John, we've expanded our presence and we've started a new radio show exactly with this topic of long-term disability. And one of the phone calls that we got was from a lady who has a lawyer who apparently is not acting nicely towards her, and that's an understatement. And that's what I want to talk about, because that really raised some issues that I think many people who have a lawyer dealing with a long-term disability claim are facing. This idea of red flags. When should you know that the lawyer you've hired is not necessarily the right lawyer for you? And what can you do about that? So, you know, I don't want to tell people to just go and lawyer shop. That's the last thing that I want to do. And I don't recommend that people just willy-nilly start calling lawyers around and seeing if they can switch. But 4 things that will tell you that there is a problem. Number 1, if a lawyer is being disrespectful to you, there is absolutely no excuse for that. There is no reason why the person you've hired to provide you with a service, and that's not just a long-term disability lawyer, that's any lawyer, is disrespectful to you or to your family. As soon as you sense disrespect, call that lawyer and tell them you will not tolerate that. Number 2, bullying or aggressive behavior. Again, you're going to have lawyers who are going to bully you into making a decision. I mean, James and I advise clients all the time about what they should do. We counsel them about their legal options. That's our job. As soon as a lawyer is bullying you or is being aggressive, calling you names, and I've heard everything. I've heard that, you know, that lawyers have called people names, that they've used swear words when they're communicating with their clients. Completely unacceptable. Number 3, and this is a major thing, especially for insurance companies. Insurance companies know which lawyers are the ones that coach their clients to lie and be deceitful, and which lawyers are on the up and up. They know, and they will view your case accordingly. So if they know that your lawyer is the kind of lawyer that probably tells you to stay at home when in fact you can go back to work, then you know what? If you have a legitimate claim, you may have a problem here, because the insurance company may not believe you because you're represented by a lawyer that they know is not necessarily being truthful when he or she represents his clients or her clients in certain cases. So you want to make sure that your lawyer does not tell you to cheat, and your lawyer does not tell you to do anything that's immoral or unethical, because that will color the way the insurance companies views your case. And number 4, and this is very personal to me, when a lawyer is being non-responsive. People call me all the time and they're amazed at how quickly we respond to their queries. They tell me, you know, I've tried to call my lawyer, I've tried to email my lawyer, I've tried to contact my lawyer for days, weeks, months, and I can't get a hold of my lawyer. Well, think about this for a second. If you can't get a hold of your lawyer, maybe the insurance company is trying to call with a settlement offer and your lawyer is not responding. That is a major red flag if your lawyer is non-responsive. So I want to tell people, if that happens, if any of these things are happening on your case, or if you're searching for a lawyer, I mean, obviously, I would say give us a call, go to inyourcorner.ca, give us a try, talk to us. It won't cost you anything to talk to us. But if you're in that situation where you have a long-term disability claim, there is a lawyer you're dealing with, and one of these red flags appears to be, in your mind, you may want to think about calling that lawyer and asking them not to do that, or perhaps taking a stand, and at a worst case scenario, leave that lawyer if in fact you feel that your case is compromised. It's your case. You are the client.
I can't see any lawyer, James, maybe why would a lawyer not respond to you for weeks, maybe days, months on end? It's their business.
Well, you would hope not, and a competent lawyer who cares about their practice, cares about their clients, won't do that.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that that's how every lawyer practices. There are some people that are lazy or disorganized, and I'm not suggesting that's the majority of the profession at all. But as in any profession, there are some that are better and some that aren't. And if you're, dealing with someone who's not one of the better lawyers, that may well be one of the things that they do.
1-855-821-5900, the number to reach out. help@inyourcorner.ca is the email address. We'll get the first one for the day, guys. Kenneth writes in, says, my sister has been dealing with a very difficult situation at home for the past year and a half. She had a miscarriage, and this led to a divorce. She's been seeing a psychologist, and he has advised that she has severe depression. She's on medication, but she's unable to work, and her family doctor also agrees. Despite that, her insurance company denied her LTD claim. Does she need to see a psychiatrist to get her claim approved?
So I want to start by thanking Ken for writing in on behalf of his sister, who's obviously going through a very difficult time in her life. And it's really helpful when a friend or a family member will take that step on behalf of a loved one to get them some help, or just to ask a question to give them some information, like Ken is doing here. So let me address Ken's questions on behalf of his sister. So does she need to get a psychiatrist? Well, she doesn't need to get a psychiatrist, not at all. If she has the support of her psychologist, then that ought to be enough to be approved. Now, does that mean that at the end of the day, the opinion of a treating psychiatrist and psychologist are treated the same? No. A psychiatrist is a medical doctor, and typically a court and even an insurance company is going to give more weight to someone who has MD, rightly or wrongly. That's the way that people think. And so, yeah, it is a stronger case typically if you also have the opinion of a psychiatrist. But is it necessary? No. And I say that, and I'm going to go back to the first thing I said at the top of the show, which is know your enemy and understand what their motivation is. If your objective is to change the insurance company's mind, and you think that by going out and getting a psychiatrist, that's going to do it, well, think again. It's not. They've made their decision, and getting a psychiatrist isn't going to change that. It's not that they don't think that the opinion is strong enough or from an appropriate expert or person in authority. Is that they've decided that this is a claim that they think they can get away with terminating, and they're taking their shot at it. So how do you deal with that? You bring a legal claim to challenge them. That's what you do. Now, down the road, it might be a good idea to get a psychiatrist to provide an opinion, and it may well be a good idea to have a psychiatrist provide treatment. I'm never going to suggest who should be giving anyone any treatment. That's not my job. That's not my role. I give legal advice, not medical advice. So should you, that's really a medical question. Is it going to help your legal claim? Not initially, but perhaps down the road.
John, I can tell you that I've had quite a few claims where psychologists had reached out to me directly, and they've been very frustrated with the process because the adjuster was not listening to them. And I can tell you, without the help of a psychiatrist, not that I'm against psychiatrists, I think that they both have a role to play, psychiatrists and psychologists, but in cases where I've had psychologists and I've had very strong reports from those psychologists who've been treating my clients, we've resolved claims for hundreds of thousands of dollars. So, it's not as though you need to have this doctor or this person or that person. It's, do you have the right person treating your client, and is that person competent enough to provide the necessary reports that you require in order to show the insurance company that if they take this all the way to court, they will lose. And I've done that with psychologists, with social workers, with a whole bunch of different types of practitioners. And the more you have, the better. And yes, insurance companies are predisposed to believing the MD, but I've seen psychiatrists, and I'm sure James has as well, who are not that helpful. And then I've seen psychologists who are not that helpful, and vice versa. So no, as James pointed out, you don't need to have a psychiatrist in this case, in Kenna's sister's case, but it is important to have someone who cares about his sister, who's treating his sister, who's supportive, and provides in-depth reports to rebut the insurance company's position.
All right, guys, let's take a short break. Right back at it. Can you still make a claim if you're past the cutoff date? We will get to that. And as promised off the top, 3 feelings most LTD claimants experience when dealing with their insurance company and what to do about them. That is coming up right here on In Your Corner. Stick around. You were being harassed, and when you said something about it, you're the one who lost your job. Now what are you going to do?
I'm going to employmentlawyer.ca.
Always check with the employment lawyer first at employmentlawyer.ca.
Insurance companies deny long-term disability claims all the time. They give lots of excuses. Don't give up. I've seen it all. They've ignored your doctors, they've ignored you. You're angry and you're frustrated. But there's hope. We resolve disability claims all the time. We force insurers to pay what they owe. We're in your corner.
Call Sivan and his team, 1-855-821-5900, or go to inyourcorner.ca. You thought you had a secure job. You didn't see it coming. Now what do you do?
I'm going to employmentlawyer.ca.
Always check with the employment lawyer first at employmentlawyer.ca. Reach out anytime, 1-855-821-5900. Help at inyourcorner.ca is the email address, or the website is inyourcorner.ca as well. As promised, guys, 3 feelings most LTD claimants experience when dealing with their insurance company and what to do about them. It sounds like a movie trailer. First one is, who's handling this one? James? You are?
I'll take care of this one, yeah.
This one's fear.
Fear, yeah. I mean, that's what most claimants feel.
Yep.
And they don't feel that necessarily initially when they apply, because you have this preconceived notion that the insurance company is there to protect you. Again, I keep saying, think about all the commercials you hear on TV, that you see on TV, that you hear on the radio. We're going to be your best friend on a rainy day. We're the ones you want. We're your pal. What are they selling you? It doesn't matter if it's long-term disability or travel insurance or car insurance. They're selling you one product: peace of mind. And the thing is this. Most people, when they get tangled up with the insurance company, and it's not that people ask for trouble, it's that insurance companies take an aggressive position, either denying their claim or telling them you're not doing this correctly or this correctly, you don't want to try to go back to work when we tell you you should. People start feeling afraid because they are seeing in their minds this image of this Goliath. And of course, they are this single individual who's suffering from an illness, from an injury, and they're afraid. They're afraid because this is their source of income. They may have kids, mortgage, bills piling up. They don't know what to do. And this is what I want people to understand. You got to turn that fear around. It's very difficult, and one way to do that is to give us a call and to have us actually intervene. Because insurance companies are preying on that fear. And they use that fear to shake you off the claim. They use that fear to repel you. Why? Because the money that's owed to you will end up staying in their pockets. That's the key here. So fear is an emotion that they use, and they use quite effectively. And as long as you understand that and stand up to them, and this is where, again, we come in, because not only are we not afraid, we actually enjoy taking the fight to them. The games, the games that they're playing, we just dispel all of that. We take the fight to them, and at that point, everything shifts. The power play shifts. You can focus on your health. We deal with the insurance company. We deal with forcing them to pay you what you're owed.
Next feeling you're going to come across more likely is frustration, right, James?
See this all the time in virtually every client. And you think about it, this is an individual who is disabled, whether it's physically or whether it's an emotional or psychological issue that they're dealing with. They're disabled and they can't go to work. And they've gone to their doctors, and their doctors have told them, no, you can't go to work. And they think, great, I have this insurance policy that I've been paying into for years, so I'm covered. So I'm going to dot the I's and cross the T's, get all the forms submitted and do everything I'm supposed to do. Surely I'll be approved and I'll have these benefits that have been my safety net for all these years. And what happens? They're denied, or they get them for a little while, but before they're even close to being ready to go back to work, their benefits get cut off. And so they think, oh, well, there must just be a mistake. It must just be that my insurance company doesn't understand. My adjuster is missing just this one little piece of information. And surely, if he or she understood the real situation, they would change their mind. And so you go to your doctor and you get the note that says, no, you still can't go back to work. And you're thinking, okay, well, now I'm okay. And you submit to the insurance company, and they say no. And then they invite you to do this appeal that you think is going to help you. And they still say no. By the way, don't appeal. We'll get to that in another segment, but don't appeal. The point of this is that, people understandably are following the rules, doing what they think that they're supposed to be doing in the expectation that their insurance company is going to follow them as well too. And they get frustrated, very understandably, when they're met with silence or a decision that makes no sense to them at all. And so that's where we come in. As soon as we take the power out of the insurance company's hands to make decisions with whatever rationale that they choose, as soon as they're no longer allowed to do that, all of a sudden, the rules change. It becomes an even playing field, and it's no longer as frustrating because they can't do whatever they want.
Fear, frustration, and the natural progression is anger.
Anger.
Right?
Anger. It's not just anger at the insurance company for having lied to them and for having taken an unreasonable position and put them in this situation that now they don't know what to do. It's internal anger inside the family. I see spouses that are now bickering at each other, and one of them is sick, and the other one is saying, it's not fair. It's this unfairness that is leading not only to the frustration that James is talking about, but to the anger. Why is it that I had paid into this policy, or my employer had paid, or we had paid together? Why is it that now when I need it, you are turning your back on me? Right. And the key here is to understand the model. What is the model that the insurance company is using? It's actually a brilliant model in a very sadistic way. It's a model of taking as much money in and paying as little money as you can out. That means that there's collateral damage. And that collateral damage are individuals and families out there. Unfortunately, the government hasn't, in my opinion, regulated this industry enough. Right. It's the Wild West. They do whatever they want. And so, again, you're in that situation now where you are now angry. And what do you do when you're angry? Most people, they walk away because they can't handle the anger. They can't handle the frustration, the fear. Again, take that anger, take that frustration, that fear, turn it around. You don't have to deal with it. This is where we step in. This is why we have a team, the team that we've assembled. This is what we do day in and day out. We take it to the insurance company. You need to focus on getting better. At the end of the day, no amount of money is going to compensate you for your health. So you want to get better? One way to get better is to let us deal with all that stress. That's what we do. That's why we're here talking about this. These three feelings, we see those, I think, in almost every client that contacts us.
Email anytime is help@inyourcorner.ca. We'll get one from Daryl. Daryl writes in, guys, says, my father, who is 58, suffered a stroke last year. I've been acting as his power of attorney. Because of everything we've been dealing with, we've missed the time for applying for LTD by 10 days, and the insurer denied his claim because of that. It just seems very unfair, and I'm wondering if we can do anything about this. He was earning $175,000 a year, and his wife, who is disabled herself, is left with very little income. He did qualify for CPP Disability recently. Is there anything we can do?
So the good news, Daryl, is, there are a few things that we can do to help out your father. So the big issue here is that there is a time period that you are supposed to provide your application to your insurance company before, after you become disabled. So you have X number of days to provide them with the application. And so what's happened here is Daryl's father, unfortunately, has missed that deadline apparently by 10 days. And so Daryl wants to know, what can we do about that? Well, the law isn't going to say that there's no way you can go ahead with your claim. In most cases, there is a doctrine, it's called relief from forfeiture. We don't have to get into the details of it, but typically speaking, as long as the insurance company's position has not been prejudiced, in other words, as long as they are able to make a fair defense of their own position, even though it's 10 days late, then the courts will typically recognize recognize the claim as being valid and enforce the policy accordingly. So assuming we're able to do this, and I'd be pretty confident in these circumstances, especially given that your father had suffered a stroke, that a court would look at this in that kind of way and would allow the claim to proceed. Now, looking at the claim here, I mean, the fact that he suffered a stroke and that he was earning $175,000 per year suggests to me that this is going to be a very significant claim. And so even if there's some risk that the court might rule against your father ultimately down the road, there's going to be significant exposure to the insurance company because they certainly can't say for sure that the court's going to rule with them. And unless they're 100% sure, if there is a claim out there for someone who's earning $175,000 a year, who suffered a stroke, who has been approved for CPP disability, which is a tougher test,
Right.
all of those factors, there's going to be significant exposure on the insurance company, and they're going to pay. They're going to pay for that.
And John, actually, I mean, this is something that's very interesting. I actually dealt with a case like this recently where the claimant, the son contacted me. The person was incapacitated, suffered 2 strokes in a car accident, and they had missed the application by about a year. And for another year, they had been battling with the insurance company, not through a legal claim, but just the sons. Yep. And one of the sons was a lawyer, but not a disability lawyer. And they'd been battling with the insurance company to approve the claim. And I got involved, and within, I think it was 4.5, maybe 5 weeks, everything was resolved. The insurance company paid retroactively and this was based on that doctrine of relief from forfeiture. So, you know, insurance companies understand that as long as individuals out there are not represented by a disability lawyer that knows what he or she is doing, they have a chance of shaking off that claim. And in this case, in Daryl's father's case, 58 years old, 175 grand a year, you're looking at a potential claim that's worth, you know, 6 figures here.
Oh, for sure.
So, I mean, wouldn't it be nice for the insurance company to keep all that money? Yep. And by the way, a lot of that money is probably going to end up being non-taxable, especially if there is a future benefit that's involved here in the resolution. So for anybody out there who's listening, who's in a position where they know someone who's incapacitated, or perhaps you are a power of attorney, take a look and make sure that whoever it is that you're assisting or helping, if they had access to LTD, the fact that they had missed that timeline for applying for LTD, I'm not talking about 10 years ago. I'm talking about a few weeks ago, a few months ago, maybe a year ago. Make sure that the application is made, and if there is a denial, you give us a call or you email us. Let us see if we can help. But don't simply take the insurance company's word for it that just because the application is late, there are no options. That's oftentimes not the case.
Well, our pal Daryl did qualify for CPP disability, but the question is, can a denial for CPP impact your LTD payments? We'll get to that after a short break and cover it, so stick around. 1-855-821-5900 and help at inyourcorner.ca. More In Your Corner is coming right up. Don't go anywhere.
You lost your job. They only gave you 2 weeks of severance per year worked. But where can you find out what you're really owed?
I'm going to severancepaycalculator.com.
Find out how much you're owed right now. severancepaycalculator.com.
You've been denied long-term disability. You think you're powerless, but you have a lot more power than you think. I'll tell you a secret. It's a numbers game for the insurance company. They're betting on you walking away from money that they owe you. Don't make that mistake. We resolve disability claims all the time. We force insurers to pay what they owe. We're in your corner.
Call Sivan and his team, 1-855-821-5900, or go to inyourcorner.ca. You lost your job. They said they had a good reason, but you think you've been wrongfully dismissed. Now what are you going to do?
I'm going to employmentlawyer.ca.
Always check with the employment lawyer first at employmentlawyer.ca.
Hey, welcome back to In Your Corner, another resource for you to ask your questions when we're not on the air. MyDisabilityQuestions.com. Want to read one to you guys right away. Marisol writes, again, MyDisabilityQuestions.com. Marisol says, how often do you deal with CPP disability? My best friend is on LTD, and she was told by her insurer that she must apply for CPP disability, which she did and then was denied. But now the insurance company is cutting her off long-term disability because she was denied CPP. But her doctors are saying that she can't work yet because of her illness regardless. So there you go.
All right, well, let's take a step back and discuss CPP disability, make sure everyone understands what we're talking about.
Okay.
So as long as you're working and you're paying into CPP, If you become disabled and you pass the CPP disability test, you have the right to apply for and hopefully receive CPP disability benefits.
Okay.
I think right now the maximum is about $1,300 or so, give or take. Now, typically speaking, if you also have a long-term disability policy and you apply for and you receive CPP disability, your insurance company is actually entitled to a credit for that amount. And so what that means is at the end of the day, you're not actually receiving any more. You're just getting the same amount from two different places. But the policy is going to require that you actually apply for it. We don't really have to go into that because that's not what Marisol's asking about. She's asking about an issue where her best friend has been forced to apply for CPP disability by her LTD insurer and has been denied CPP disability, and on that basis, her long-term disability insurer is saying, okay, well, if CPP disability is denying you, then we're denying you as well, too. That's completely bogus. It's a different test. And frankly, the CPP disability test is clearly a more difficult test to pass. The test for CPP disability requires a prolonged and severe disability, and that means you can't do any type of gainful employment at all, which is going to be a more strict test than at any point during a standard LTD disability policy. For the first 2 years of LTD, it's whether or not you can return to your own occupation, and after that, it's any occupation that you are qualified by training, education, or experience. For CPP disability, it is whether or not you can do any gainful employment. Okay, so it's a much stricter test. So the fact that you don't pass that very, very strict test doesn't mean that you're not also going to pass this test that's not quite as strict down here. And you very well may, and if your doctors are telling you that you cannot go back to work, then you very likely will pass the test for long-term disability benefits. And so, the fact that they are basing their decision on a CPP disability denial is completely wrong, and they know it too. And if that is the basis that appears in the file, they're going to be in big trouble when we start a legal claim.
The counter to that is you should apply for CPP because if you pass that test and get it, now it is more difficult for your insurer to say, oh, you're not good enough to pass our test. Right?
I know, and I recognize that sounds a little bit like having your cake and eating it too, but it's not. The CPP disability test is harder. If you pass that test, that suggests in and of itself that you also pass the LTD test. Now, they are two different entities and they are entitled to come to different decisions. But the reality is, if the government is telling you that you pass a harder test, then your insurer ought to be approving you for long-term disability.
And Sivan, you have mentioned in the past as well, if you're getting both, say, fictitiously, or in this case, getting both, and your long-term disability insurer cuts you off, financially, you're better off because you're still getting your CPP.
Yeah, financially, you are definitely going to be better off. Absolutely. And, I agree with everything that James said, but I also think that it's noteworthy to mention that, in this particular case, the email that we got here about CPP disability, insurance companies will use whatever reason, whatever rationale they can get their hands on, whatever excuse they can muster to cut off your disability. And frankly, saying that because you got denied CPP disability, now we're going to deny you LTD, that's one of the weakest arguments they can come up with. So if that's the best they can come up with, I can tell you, you should definitely give us a call. We can definitely help you. But in any situation, zoom out for a second.
Yeah.
If at any point the insurance company cuts you off or denies your claim for any reason, do not take their word for it. Don't assume. And I've seen situations where the insurance company has come up with 12 different reasons for why a person should not get anything. I actually have a case in mind that I helped an individual about 2 years ago. There were 12 reasons, including surveillance, including a whole bunch of stuff. That case resolved for mid-six figures. Okay? So very, very important to understand, you're denied or cut off LTD, you give us a call. If you don't, money's going to be left in the insurance company's pocket, money that's owed to you.
You want to reach out anytime now that we're wrapping for the day. MyDisabilityQuestions.com is a good resource. Of course, there's always email that is simply help@inyourcorner.ca. The phone number works, 1-855-821-5900, and you will contact you. Any information how about to catch past shows of the radio show for that matter, inyourcorner.ca is the place to go. Till next time, thank you so much for catching In Your Corner. We will see you next time right here.